The company's annual party was one of those events that everyone knew would happen, but no one really looked forward to. It was the same routine, every year: small talk, forced smiles, and drinks that were a little too expensive for my taste. As I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been following me for a while now. Something about my life felt flat. Alex and I had been married for 5 years, and for the most part, everything had been smooth sailing. But lately, there was this distance between us that I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't that we fought. Far from it. But there was this quiet, almost invisible gap that seemed to grow wider by the day. And, even worse, I was starting to notice it more. I was beginning to question if things were really the way they should be. The sound of Alex's voice in the other room snapped me out of my thoughts. "Are you ready yet? Or do I have to come in there and pick out a dress for you?" His tone was light, teasing, but I could hear the undercurrent of genuine concern. He always worried about being late to these things. "I'm almost done," I called back, pulling my hair into a neat bun. I glanced at my reflection one more time and forced a smile. I looked good. I looked fine. But I didn't feel it. When I walked into the living room, Alex looked up from adjusting his tie. His eyes softened when they met mine. "You look beautiful," he said, his smile warm. "I'm glad we're going. It'll be good to see everyone." "Thanks," I replied, trying to smile. "You look great too." He leaned in to kiss me on the cheek, a gesture that had once been a sweet sign of affection, but now felt more like a habit. I quickly pushed the thought aside, forcing myself to focus on the evening ahead. I didn't want to overthink things tonight. We arrived at the venue, a large hotel ballroom where the event was being held. The air inside was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, and the noise of people talking and laughing mixed with the clinking of glasses. Everything was polished, shiny, and perfect, but I still felt out of place. "Come on," Alex said, noticing my distracted look. "Let's find a drink." I followed him to the bar, where we were greeted by our coworkers and clients. I tried to be present, to engage in conversation, but my mind kept drifting. And then, I saw him. John. He was leaning casually against the bar, talking to a group of people. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his easy smile seemed to light up the room. There was always something magnetic about John. He was the kind of person who naturally drew attention, and I couldn't deny that it was hard to ignore him. I quickly looked away, hoping Alex hadn't seen the brief flicker of recognition that passed between John and me. It was nothing. Just a look, but it felt different this time. Almost electric. "Hey Mia," I heard from behind me. It was John. He walked up to us, his usual confident stride taking him right up to my side. "You two are looking good tonight," he said, his voice smooth and friendly. "Thanks, John," Alex said with a smile. "How's everything going?" "Everything's great," John replied, giving me a brief but intense look that made my heart race for some reason. "Just wanted to come say hi. You know how it is. Gotta make the rounds." We chatted for a while, the conversation light and easy, but my mind wasn't fully there. I kept sensing John's gaze on me, lingering just a little too long, and I couldn't help but feel the pull of it. I had always told myself that John was harmless. He was just flirty by nature, and I was being silly. But in that moment, something felt different. After a few minutes, I excused myself to grab another drink, needing a moment to gather my thoughts. As I made my way to the other side of the bar, I could feel John's eyes on me, like an invisible thread between us. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling lingered. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. I returned to Alex's side, pushing my discomfort aside. We were here to have fun, to enjoy ourselves, to be normal. And yet, as the night wore on, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of tension in my chest. Something was pulling me toward John, even though I knew I shouldn't let it. The evening progressed, and I tried my best to blend in, to focus on the conversation with Alex and our colleagues. But my attention kept drifting back to John. It wasn't that I wanted it to, but every time I looked up, he was there. Always near, always just within reach. He was a few steps away, talking to someone, but his eyes kept finding mine. And every time our gazes locked, it was like a spark shot through me, something that shouldn't have been there. I told myself to focus. It was just a company party. I was married to Alex, and he was right there beside me. But as the evening wore on, I couldn't ignore the growing tension. I had always told myself that John was harmless, just a charming, flirtatious guy who liked to get attention. But that night, it felt different. It felt like more. We were standing in a small circle of coworkers when I felt his presence behind me. I turned slightly and saw John, leaning against the bar again, this time with a drink in hand. He raised his glass toward me, a small smirk on his face, and it was as if the entire world narrowed to just him. There was something in his look, something deeper than the usual friendly teasing. "Enjoying the party, Mia?" he asked, his voice low, just loud enough for me to hear over the noise. "Yeah, it's great," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's just a little crowded, that's all." "You always look so at ease in these things," he said, his words lingering. "I envy that." There was something in the way he said it, something that made me uneasy and yet undeniably intrigued. I wasn't sure why, but it felt like he wasn't just talking about the party anymore. It felt like he was talking about me. I took a sip of my drink, trying to keep myself composed. My hand trembled slightly, and I could feel my heart rate pick up. I glanced over at Alex, who was chatting with a colleague, unaware of the subtle tension building between John and me. I didn't want to make things awkward. I didn't want to hurt Alex, but I couldn't help the way my body responded to John's presence. John was still watching me, waiting for a response. His eyes were dark, but there was a playful edge to them that I couldn't quite ignore. "I don't know about that," I said, trying to keep things light. "I think I'm just good at pretending." "You don't need to pretend, Mia," he said, his voice dropping even lower. "You're perfect just as you are." The compliment caught me off guard. It felt too intimate, too personal for a casual work event. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words stuck in my throat. For a brief moment, everything else around me disappeared. It was just me and him, his presence overwhelming, magnetic. Before I could find my words, Alex called out from across the room. "Mia, you good over there?" I blinked, suddenly feeling grounded again. "Yeah, just getting a drink," I called back, forcing a smile as I quickly turned away from John. But John's gaze didn't leave me. I could feel it burning into my back as I walked back to Alex, and for some reason, that made me feel more alive than I had in a long time. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I spent most of the time chatting with Alex and our coworkers, but I couldn't shake the feeling that John was always near, always watching. It was like the universe had made sure that every time I turned around, he was there. By the time the night was winding down, I felt like I had spent the whole evening in a daze. Alex seemed happy, talking to the same group of people, but I felt disconnected. I was tired, but there was something else nagging at me. The night had become this strange combination of excitement and guilt, and I couldn't tell if it was the alcohol or something deeper. "I'm gonna grab some fresh air," I said to Alex, needing a break from the overwhelming sensation in my chest. "I'll be right back." "All right, don't be too long," he said, not really looking at me. I nodded and walked out into the cool night air, taking a deep breath as I tried to clear my mind. I didn't know what I was feeling, only that it felt confusing and wrong. I wandered down the street for a few minutes, trying to process everything that had happened so far. I was married to Alex. He was the man I loved, the man I had promised to spend my life with. But why did it feel like a part of me was slipping away from him? And then, just as I was about to turn back to the party, I felt the weight of someone standing beside me. "Did you need some air too?" I heard John's voice, low and smooth behind me. I stiffened, but I didn't turn around. "I needed a minute," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't move away. Instead, he stepped closer. "You don't need to pretend with me, Mia," he said, his voice thick with something I couldn't quite place. "I know you're not as happy as you seem." I swallowed hard. I hadn't said anything to him about feeling unhappy, hadn't let on that I was struggling, but somehow he seemed to know. Maybe it was in my eyes, or the way I had been avoiding his gaze all night. Whatever it was, it felt too raw, too real. "I don't know what you mean," I said quickly, my breath hitching in my throat. John placed a hand on the railing next to me, his fingers just inches from mine. "I think you do," he said softly. "You're more than just the good wife, Mia. I can see it. You deserve more than just the routine." I didn't know what to say, and my heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the tension between us building. "John, Before I could finish my sentence, he turned slightly toward me, his face inches from mine. His breath was warm against my cheek. "Let me help you, Mia," he whispered, his voice low and seductive. I froze, not knowing what to do or say. I wasn't sure if I should pull away or stay in the moment. Something inside me wanted to stop this, to tell him I was married, that I had no interest in crossing any line. But the words wouldn't come. And for a moment, just a brief moment, I didn't know if I wanted them to. The air between John and me felt charged, heavy with something unspoken. I could feel the pull, like an invisible thread pulling me toward him, but I didn't want to give in. My body, however, seemed to have a mind of its own, betraying me. I could hear the faint sound of laughter and chatter from the party in the distance, but all I could focus on was the proximity between us. I took a shaky breath and stepped back, but he was quicker, closing the space between us in one fluid motion. "Mia," he whispered, his voice soft and insistent. "You don't have to pretend. You don't have to be the good wife all the time. Not here. Not with me." I could feel his breath on my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. The words he spoke were like a siren's call, tempting me to step closer to the edge. I wanted to pull away, to remind myself of the vows I had taken, but something inside me stirred. It was the weight of months of quiet dissatisfaction, the longing for something more than the predictable routine of my life with Alex. I glanced down at my phone, the screen glowing with messages from him. "Where are you? Everything okay?" I felt a pang of guilt, but it quickly passed. I couldn't ignore the way I felt standing here with John. How alive, how desired, how seen I felt in this moment. I turned to face him, finally meeting his eyes. There was no mistaking the hunger in his gaze, the desire that mirrored my own. My body was responding to him in ways I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. I swallowed hard, and before I could even think, my lips were on his. The kiss was electric, overwhelming, and I couldn't stop myself. I wasn't thinking about Alex anymore. I wasn't thinking about the consequences. All I could think about was the fire that burned between John and me, the undeniable chemistry we had always shared, and how, for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt wanted. His hands found their way to my waist, pulling me closer as the kiss deepened. Everything else faded away. The party, the noise, the life I had with Alex. In this moment, there was only John and me, and that felt like a different kind of truth. I pulled back slightly, breathless, my chest rising and falling with each inhale. "I shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was saying it to him or to myself. John cupped my face, his thumb brushing across my cheek. "You deserve more than this life, Mia," he said, his voice a mixture of desire and something else, something more intense, more dangerous. "You deserve to feel alive, don't you want to?" His words echoed in my mind as I looked at him, torn. I didn't want to acknowledge it, but deep down, I knew. I had wanted something more, something different, for so long. This was reckless, this was wrong, but at that moment it felt like the only thing that made sense. I'm not sure I can stop," I murmured, my hands moving to his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. John didn't respond with words, he responded with actions. Before I could process anything, his lips were on mine again, and this time, the kiss was deeper, more desperate. It was as if everything had been building to this point, and neither of us could hold back anymore. And just like that, I crossed the line. I let myself go, gave in to the temptation. The part of me that had been holding back, the part that had tried to protect the life I had with Alex, disappeared. I woke up the next morning in an unfamiliar bed. The sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting a warm, hazy glow across the room. I blinked, trying to shake off the confusion that hung in the air. My head throbbed with a dull ache, and as I sat up, I realized the weight of what I had done. I looked around the room, the sheets tangled around me, and the reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. I had cheated on Alex. There was no denying it now. I got out of bed slowly, my body heavy, and walked toward the bathroom. My reflection in the mirror startled me. I looked different, tired, hollow. I hadn't expected to feel like this, guilty, yes, but also a sense of shame I hadn't anticipated. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my breathing. What now? I had to go back. I had to face Alex, and I had no idea how to begin explaining this. There was no excuse for what I had done. I had betrayed him. And yet, despite the guilt, there was a part of me that felt empty, like I had somehow been searching for something this entire time and had finally found it. Only to realize it wasn't what I expected. I dressed quickly, not bothering to check my phone. The last thing I wanted was for Alex to find out that I had ignored his calls and texts. He had been worried. I could only imagine how he must have felt last night, knowing I wasn't answering. When I got back to my apartment, Alex was sitting on the couch, looking at his phone, his expression unreadable. The silence between us was deafening. I hadn't seen him like this in a long time, so quiet, so distant. Hey, I said, my voice weak, unsure of how to even begin. I'm sorry. Alex didn't respond at first. He just stared at me, his face pale, his jaw clenched. I could tell he was holding something back, trying to process the situation. I was worried. He finally said, his voice tight. You didn't answer your phone. I thought something happened to you. I took a deep breath, sitting next to him. I wasn't thinking clearly, Alex. I went to clear my head, but things got complicated. His eyes narrowed. Complicated? What does that mean? I swallowed hard. The words felt like they were stuck in my throat. I made a mistake. I cheated on you, Alex. The room seemed to freeze as those words hung in the air. Alex blinked, as though he couldn't believe what I had just said. And then, his expression shifted. Hurt, disbelief, anger. You what? He asked, his voice low, trembling with emotion. I'm sorry. I whispered, my voice cracking. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened. The silence in the room was suffocating. The words I had just said to Alex hung between us, a sharp, painful truth that neither of us could escape. I could see the disbelief in his eyes, the way his jaw clenched and his fists tightened at his sides. He was trying to process it, but I could feel his anger building, just beneath the surface. I had always thought of myself as someone who could control things, someone who could manage my emotions, keep my actions in check. But in this moment, I realized just how far I had gone, how much I had lost control. Alex didn't speak right away. He just stared at me, as if waiting for some kind of explanation, something that would make sense of my betrayal. But there was no easy way to explain it. There was no excuse that would make it okay. I don't even know what to say. Alex finally spoke, his voice quiet but filled with so much pain. How long has this been going on, Mia? How long have you been hiding this from me? I shook my head, my throat tight. It's not like that, I said, my voice breaking. It wasn't planned. I swear, Alex, I never meant to hurt you. I got lost. I was confused, and for a second, I forgot what really mattered. But that's on me. I messed up. Alex stood up, pacing across the room, his hands running through his hair in frustration. Confused. Lost, he repeated, the words dripping with disbelief. You think that justifies it? You think that makes it okay? I stood up too, feeling a lump form in my throat. I never thought it would happen. I didn't want it to happen. I don't even know how it happened, Alex. But it did, and I can't take it back. He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his eyes hard. You don't even know how it happened. You don't know what you did. His voice was rising now, the hurt and betrayal in every word. You just let it happen, Mia. You just let it all slip away, like it didn't matter. I wanted to say something, to explain. But the truth was, there was no way to explain it. Nothing I could say would fix what I had done. I'm sorry. I whispered, my voice barely audible. I never meant to betray you, Alex. I never meant for any of this. He walked toward me, his steps slow and deliberate, and when he spoke again, his voice was low but filled with hurt. I trusted you, Mia. I gave you everything I had, and you threw it all away. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach, and I staggered back, my hand clutching my chest. I didn't throw it away. I didn't mean to, I said, my eyes welling up with tears. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what came over me, but I swear, I regret it, I do. Alex stood there, staring at me, his face a mask of pain. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but there was something else there too, something I hadn't seen before. A crack in the foundation of our relationship that I wasn't sure we could repair. Regret doesn't change what happened, Alex said, his voice hardening. You can't just undo this, Mia. You can't just erase what you did. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I know I can't. I wish I could. I would do anything to take it back, but I can't. He let out a breath, his shoulders slumping as he ran a hand through his hair. I need space, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I need to think, I need time. I opened my mouth to speak, to apologize again, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. I had already crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I had betrayed his trust, and no amount of apologizing would change that. I'll give you some space, I said quietly, backing away toward the door. I don't want to make this harder for you. I'm sorry. Well, Alex didn't respond. He just stood there, his back turned to me, staring out the window. I left the apartment quietly, the weight of the situation settling in like a heavy fog. I could feel the finality in the air. It wasn't just about what I had done with John. It was about the foundation of my marriage. The trust, the connection, that had been shattered in an instant. I didn't know what the future held for me and Alex, but I knew this, nothing would ever be the same again. I went back to my apartment, but the emptiness of the place hit me hard. I wanted to curl up into a ball, shut out the world, and disappear. But the truth was, I couldn't run from what I had done. I picked up my phone and stared at it for a while, not sure whether to call Alex or give him the space he had asked for. The screen was full of his missed calls and messages, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. The doorbell rang, and my heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone, and part of me was afraid it was Alex, coming to confront me again. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Alex standing there. It was John. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice shaky, but the moment I saw him, I knew why he was here. "I couldn't let you go without saying something," John said, his tone calm, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Mia, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to complicate things. But I see the way you've been with Alex lately, and I know something's been off. You don't have to be with him if it's not what you want. You can have what you deserve. You can have what we could have." I stared at him, feeling the rush of emotions flooding through me. I had made a mistake, and now there were no easy answers. There was no going back to the way things were. "I'm not sure what I want anymore," I said quietly, feeling the weight of the decision ahead of me. "But I do know one thing: I've hurt Alex in a way I can't undo. And I don't know how to fix that." John stepped forward, his expression softening. "You don't have to fix it alone, Mia. I'm here." But in that moment, I realized something. What I had with Alex was worth fighting for. No matter how hard it would be, no matter how broken it felt right now, I needed to at least try. "I appreciate it, John," I said, stepping back and closing the door softly. "But I have to figure this out for myself. I have to make it right with Alex first." The weeks after that night were a blur of raw emotions, hard conversations, and painful silences. Alex and I spent days apart, trying to process everything. I didn't expect him to forgive me. After all, I had shattered his trust in a way that couldn't be easily fixed. But he surprised me. One evening, a week after John had come to my door, Alex asked if we could talk. My heart skipped a beat as I sat down across from him. His face was tired, but there was a calmness in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. "I've thought a lot about everything," he said, his voice steady, though I could tell there was still a depth of hurt behind his words. "I don't know if I'll ever fully understand why it happened, Mia. I don't know if I'll ever stop being hurt by it. But I know this: I still love you, and I believe in what we have. I believe in us." I felt my throat tighten as I tried to process his words. "Alex, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't know what I can do to make up for this." He shook his head. "I'm not forgiving you because you deserve it. I'm forgiving you because I want to, because I think we're worth fighting for. I've always known that there was more to us than just the routine. We've been through a lot together, Mia. And I believe we can rebuild from this, even if it's not easy." I blinked back tears, my heart swelling with a mixture of relief and guilt. "I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I can make you trust me again, but I will try. I will spend every day trying to show you that I'm still the woman you married. That I can be the partner you deserve." Alex reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "We'll take it one day at a time. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for honesty. For us to be real with each other. And for us to move forward, together." In that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew there would be days where the past would haunt us. But for the first time since everything happened, I felt like there was a chance, a real chance, for us to heal. We spent the next few weeks rebuilding, step by step. We went to therapy, talked more openly about our fears, our desires, and the cracks that had formed in our marriage. Alex's support was unwavering, even when I didn't feel like I deserved it. He pushed me to face my mistakes, but he also stood by me when I felt like I couldn't take the weight of it all. I learned that forgiveness wasn't just about saying, "I'm sorry." It was about the effort that came after. The willingness to change, to rebuild, and to earn back trust, piece by piece. And Alex wasn't just forgiving me, he was showing me that love meant showing up, even when it was hard. We're not perfect. We still have our struggles, and there are days when the past threatens to creep in. But what we've built together is stronger than I ever imagined it could be. The road isn't easy, and it's still a work in progress. But Alex and we're trying. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believe we'll make it through. Because sometimes, love isn't about avoiding the mistakes. It's about how you handle them when they happen, and the choice to keep choosing each other every day.